So I've got a feature request for you.
We don't take those on Fridays.
Okay.
Hello.
What you got?
Actually came from my automation manager because he's now using pulling reports from Lifecycle for sending to clients so that we can validate, the billable. Is it possible to have some sort of calendar event or something that can email reports or certain reports?
I feel like that's a feature request that already exists, scheduled
Okay.
reports.
Okay.
But let me double check and make sure. And if it's not, I'll get it out there.
Okay.
Howard, are you a ticking grenade? Is that what your icon is? Ah, okay.
A keyboard grenade, huh?
Keyboard grenade. Yep.
That's fun.
I feel like that is the exact epitome of many of the end users that I've handed a keyboard to over the years. Like, here, you're going to use this to blow something up, mostly my networks.
I was talking to a 17-year-old who broke an arm, and so they were saying they couldn't work anymore. And I said, well, lucky for you, I was in high school and administrator, and all you need is a split keyboard, because your problem is you can't get your arms lined up on this keyboard. So if we can split it, you'll be good to go. And I'm sure his answer was like, thanks, Miss Marnie. Hello.
Oh, good. You found a way to solve my problem. That's exactly what I was looking for.
You came to the wrong woman.
I wasn't trying to get out of doing work. I was just trying to. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went. I was cracking myself up. I said, or my daughter's tip, dragging speech to text. Like, she wrote a 10-page essay that way. So Howard, I think you've got that trick along as well. I hear.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually the only way I got that stuff done.
So Kirk, I can tell you, not only is there a ticket on this, but since the last time I saw it, work has been done on it. It doesn't have a delivery date or a QA date or anything like that. So it's still, it was being blocked by something else, and that something else has been worked on to clear it. So it's out there.
I suspect if you wasn't muted,
Yeah.
that would be an overwhelming thank you.
I said you gave it fiber. Thank you. You got it moving.
Right. It wasn't me. Somebody else did it while I was not paying attention. Thank God.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Well, we have a crowded house today, so let me get us going. Happy Friday, everybody. All right. So showing my screen, nothing new there because these things are new enough or big enough, or we're spending a good bit of time preparing for them. So that is a lie. I put Sunday's release. We're talking about a few different things today. It's a grab bag, but where you can find us. So this week, next Friday, we will be canceling. Call it your trick or treat or trick, depending on how you feel about spending Friday afternoons with us. Although some of you might be spending Friday afternoons with us anyway, because if you are going to Austin for the 7-figure sales event, then Alex will be there. And if you are going to Robin Robbins in Chicago, then I will be there. Thank you, Alex. And then IT Nation Orlando after that. So we're excited to do all the things. If anybody is interested in coupon codes for either Austin or ConnectWise, just info@lifecycleinsights.io, and we have a couple. And then if you're
I'm gonna promise you guys, you will get to see my Halloween costume on this call next time we have it.
yeah. So that'll be
And
November 5th.
it'll be entertaining.
Yeah. We can't spoil it today because it's all part of the fun for
Right. It is for all those who will be there.
Yeah.
Because there's a Halloween costume contest and no one can be prepared for what I'm bringing. That's all I'm saying.
Oh God.
But maybe I'll do the next Friday call in my costume just for the heck of it.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant when you said that. Yes, you will.
Okay. All right.
I still got
you guys
my
heard it here
Black Widow
first.
costume, so you can come in yours and I'll come in the Black Widow costume, and we'll just make it a November 5th Halloween party. Okay, so next up, Amy, our customer success manager, has a little customer success story that she is going to share about a recent win from a life cycler.
Yeah. So this week we were talking to a partner and they did their very first life cycle insights assessment with a brand new prospect and went in and laid out all of the risks and showed them how broken they were and walked away with a 24 seat deal at $350 a seat. I mean, that's just good stuff.
That is good stuff. Yeah, you got a thumbs up. It's hard with reacting, avatars. Oh, we got a thumbs up. We got an avatar thumbs up. I
From
like
Kirk. Oh God.
So it's interesting. I told someone else that story this morning. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to give a little geometry lesson, which I'm sure Alex is like, what the heck? You didn't tell me about a geometry lesson. Why are we talking about a geometry lesson? Well, I taught geometry. So I taught logic.
That was the only bad math grade I ever got. I just want to point that out.
Probably because I wasn't your teacher. So that's okay.
We'll go with that.
So it's a lesson in objection handling, really, but it's all about logic pieces. So when we start with a risk assessment, which I think is how many of us present in a risk review, a QBR, we're aiming for the logic that if P, then Q, which is if today is Friday, then tomorrow is Saturday. So what does that look like? If we go through the risk assessment and we agree that these are the business pain points, red is red, green is green, and the business owner agrees with the pain points, the natural conclusion is we have recommendations to cure that pain point, which produce a budget and a commitment to finance. And because we've all agreed along the way, that is exactly what happened to the customer that Amy was talking to, is that the person they were talking to agreed with the statement, agreed that they wanted to solve the problem, and therefore had to agree to pay the money. Where everyone gets stuck is what happens when you get to the end of, if today is Friday, then tomorrow is Saturday, and they say no, right? Like, but we just did all that logic, and today's Friday and tomorrow's Saturday, so you should have to pay me this. So the problem there is they have not agreed that sales payment or that the project payment is worth the risk. So the other equally logical argument is to reverse engineer that. So this is called, if in the geometry lesson that Alex didn't learn in high school, it's the contrapositive, Alex. So it's the backwards, but it also has to be true. So in our, if today's Friday, tomorrow's Saturday, it would be, if tomorrow is not Saturday, then today can't be Friday. That has to be true, right? Like that is in fact a fact. So how does that work in your conversation? The way Alex would say it, okay, Mr. Customer, so you don't want to pay this amount. Let's look at
I'm being mocked right now. I just want to point that out. This is a hostile work environment.
Yeah. So this is so tell me if I'm wrong, Alex. You would take that and say like, okay, let's talk about what happens if we don't do this. If you don't agree to pay for this project, right? Then feed our way back to risk assessment. This turns red. And now what's the consequence if the bad thing happens when that risk stays red? And that's where you talk about a breach happens, you lose your data. As Alex says, you put all of your clients' personal information on the billboard and it's, all you're doing right on the highway. You have to pay ransom funds, etc. Right? So now, had you started with that big scary thing, it would have been it would have felt a little FUD, fear factor, a little harsher. Because you didn't start with where they were, right? You started with what seemed like a crazy assumption, which they weren't going with all along. But when you started with where they were, took them to where you wanted to be, when they disagreed, when you backed them up, it kind of gave you permission to say, well, if you don't do this, this is what may happen. And so suddenly it's kind of that bracketing conversation in reverse, right? You told them this small project price. Now you gave them this large ransom figure. Suddenly the conversation changes a little. So Alex, I hadn't discussed contrapositive and objection handling with you before. So I'll take your feedback on your thoughts on that.
That's too big a word for me to talk about, which
But
is
it's
why I had to
reverse
take geometry
engineering.
twice. Yes.
It's your reverse
To be
engineering.
fair, I
Right.
didn't flunk geometry, but I got a D, and my mother said there will be no D's in this household, so I had to go take it during the summer.
Okay, that is fair. I'll
Yeah,
let you have it.
yeah. So that's, but no, I love that, and I also think that, you know, if you get to the point where you're just having a reasonable discussion with your customer, I think there's a difference between a discussion and an objection. And I think that a sales process includes a lot of those kind of discussions with a little bit of back and forth before somebody ever goes to, I object, I'm not going to buy what you're selling me. Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, everybody talks about objection handling, and I always poke at folks who talk objection handling. I'm like, well, if you got objections, you're already screwed up, right? You already screwed your sales pitch up, because if you got to the point where you're trying to close the deal and you get an objection, you never should have gotten this far in the first place. And in my mind, an objection is that thing at the presentation that's jamming you up from getting the close, versus the conversation that leads up to it, that may be a little bit of back and forth and a little bit of clarification, or even a little bit of debate. I think that's healthy, and I think it's part of every conversation, and not necessarily even just related to a sales process. So in my mind, objections are those things that keep you from closing the deal. I love the thought of just turning that around on them and going, hey, you know, but if you don't, here's the flip side to that coin.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the sort of the logic is behind that, right? I think many people use it, but like logically, that's why it works, because it's exactly the same truth value. So I am sharing my screen. So for listening to my little story and geometry lesson, we have a prize for the day. And that is single sign-on is out.
You should have made everybody turn on their camera before you released this. I want to see all the
should have.
smiles.
Yeah. Single sign-on. So this is how you get to it for today. So I'm at the login screen. If you click on the light bulb 6 times, you can sign in with Google or Microsoft. So you're welcome. Why 6 times? Because we wanted to make sure we tested it out for ourselves for a while, and our developers have a sense of humor. So will that go away? So it just shows up on the screen? Yes. But I feel like they say, Alex and Marnie make us jump through a lot of hoops to build all these things everybody asks for. So we're going to make them click a button 6 times. So have at it. There is also something else that will be out next week. So we showed you the assessment comparison report last week, and we've already gotten feedback. So thank you, because a couple of you are on the call that have already used it and said, I want it to look like this. I need this button here, etc. And due to trying to work out ways to get the printing to work, they had to make some revisions. So I am going to show them today. This will not be released probably until the end of next week, when the printing is ready to go as well. So they've got the printing working, with one small exception that I'm confident they're working on right now. Who knows? They'll ping me in the middle of this and say log out and log back in, but we'll see. So this is to create a comparison event, and there are a lot of new folks that weren't here last week on the call. So I'm going to talk through the pieces again. If you go into an assessment event, now if you're at an assessment, you can copy an event or add a comparison event to it. So you can do this way over here in the right-hand column. You have the copy feature. You can copy over previous responses, public comments, private comments. And when you do that, you will see that the previous responses are asterisk. There's a new column on the left with an asterisk that indicates your response selected from the previous assessment. If you want to hide those, there's a button to hide that. And if you want to see a comparison report, you can click in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to go out of this particular event and choose another one where we have already done some assessment and look at that data. So let me grab this one, I think. And in the upper right-hand corner, assessment comparison event. So we used to have two columns, two charts side by side, and now we have one. This is for printing purposes and trying to get it look nice in Report Builder, but also we got a lot of feedback saying I had to do too much work to look at where my value was on the left-hand graph and where it is on the right. So now you can see my event and my comparison event. So it is my previous event, my current event. So your current event's always on top, the previous event's on bottom. And if you want to change, which is, so your previous event, current event, and now in reporting options, I can choose the events that are in column 1 and column 2. So if I wanted to take last year's event and the October 16th event, I can switch it up, and you can see that in this case, I actually dropped a little because in December last year, we were in better shape. You can still hide the detail.
Marnie, Ron asked if this is active yet, and it's not, but do we know when they plan to roll it?
So next week. So Ron, right now, if you roll this out, you will see two charts side by side. So you can get a report today, but it doesn't have the printout yet. The printing will be out probably next weekend. Who knows? Maybe this weekend, our developers. I'm going to say next weekend, but I don't know. But right now, if you do it, I can show you in the live site. This is what it looks like today. Show off my single sign-on skills twice in one day. That's perfect. So today, Ron, with the assessment events, if I grab one and grab the comparison, you will see the same report, but you've got two graphs side by side, two charts. Instead, they're moving, the leftmost data point to the bottom that way.
Okay.
Great. So, yep. And today, again, you could collapse that and could, see an overview of all the categories. But
we do have partners who are screenshotting it as it sits today and putting it into the report builder so that they can take this content and deliver it until such time as we get that Word report out. So think of it from that perspective too.
I didn't know that we had this ability to even find this stuff even before.
We published this last weekend.
It's only been out a week, Ron, so you're not far behind.
Okay, only a week behind.
What, Ron? We've had this for like 8 days now.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of funny, actually, that you said it exactly that way, because we wanted to talk about, so we've been in Lifecycle Insights a while. What maybe have we not done, or what should we think about taking another look at? Just as kind of hygiene and best practices of are we getting the most value bang for the buck? So some reminders in integrations. We do now have the ability to import contracts, right, or agreements from ConnectWise and Autotask. Even if you are an IT Glue customer, if you're using IT Glue as your primary integration. So this is first a checklist of, do I have all the integrations set up that I want to? So if you're not pulling over agreements, don't forget you can go in and add a new secondary agreement. And you would do that inside of contracts. It will say, do you want to import from, and then it'll let you choose ConnectWise or Autotask. So that's the first one. If you have any questions on that, feel free to put in the chat. If you want the documentation around any of this, we have documentation, we can ship it your way. The next one, LineGuard. If you are a LineGuard partner, be sure to, integrate your LineGuard information here. This pulls, we support G Suite and Azure AD, so the users, and then the devices for like mobile device, etc. Alex, anything else about the LineGuard integration? That is early adopter, but we get some good user reporting with that.
Yeah, It pulls a couple of extra things. It will get you MFA status in Microsoft 365. So when you go back to your user report, it'll tell you who has MFA installed and who does not. It'll also pull things like manage mobile devices. So if you have managed devices on G Suite or on 365, you can pull that hardware in, even if it doesn't exist in ConnectWise or IT Glue already. That does include Chromebooks if anybody's doing anything with K-12. So you can get managed Chromebook inventories for your K-12 customers, which is pretty awesome. I think those are the big ones. Oh, and Know Before. So if you're using Know Before and LionGuard, you can get scoring from your cybersecurity training attached to your users, which is coming for other platforms.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the next platform that'll be coming on, since we just figured?
Yeah, the next platform that's going to be coming on is Breach Secure Now. They were supposed to have the API done for us this week. So they're still working on security on the API. They had a couple little snags, but as soon as they get that API out to us, we should be pushing that to you guys. So our hope is that when we are with Breach Secure Now at IT Nation, we're able to talk about that particular item. So that's coming up fast. I'd like to see it way, way, way sooner. Ron, are you talking Dark Web ID, the Kaseya product?
That was Todd.
Or Todd, sorry.
Yeah, I am.
I don't know that we have a plan or an ETA with them.
That's
So-
the wrong answer.
It goes to figure.
Marnie, we know somebody over there, right?
I mean, I did a cat fight with Amelia.
Maybe you need to go have a conversation with her.
All right, Todd, for you.
See, look at that. Service on a Friday afternoon.
Hey, Alex,
Yes.
what about Microsoft Insights? Mobile device management.
Yes. No, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to have an interesting conversation.
Okay.
So what
But
is,
if
just
you
so I
wanna-
can write it down? I wasn't listening.
Microsoft Insights.
Okay.
Ron, if you want to take that to a conversation offline, I'm happy to have you show me what you're looking at, what you're looking for, and we can talk about. I know that sometime next year we're going to refresh our Microsoft API, and there will be some more stuff coming from Microsoft. So it's
Okay.
better to know about that stuff before then than after.
I'll give you a shout next week.
Okay. I'm traveling next week, but we'll find some time.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Along the same lines, so we've done, so I'm glad you said Microsoft 365. I have a sneaking suspicion that everyone on this call, it's one of those preaching to the choir type things, but if you've not integrated Microsoft 365, for sure, that's how you get the extra columns in your user report, right? So if you want to have the side-by-side comparison, this is also where the LionGuard user information would populate if you had a LionGuard integration. So this is, you get a much meatier list here. And I think at the end of the year, it's a lot of folks we hear are having this like, okay, it's the end of the year. Let's make sure we tidy up our user list, make sure we don't have any holes, et cetera. And so you might as well use the data that you've got to make it as easy and fast as possible. So those integrations were the 3 highlights there. The other pieces, we occasionally get some tickets about this. So some of these questions came from like recent tickets of what folks have been asking. And don't forget, you probably set this up the very first day you started life cycling, and it's not a bad time to go back and check your default policies, including, do you want us to write back purchase date and warranty expiration dates? So if we're not already doing that for you and you want them written back, that is an option, as well as setting when we go do your warranty lookup. So we get some questions around that. I did just use the word life cycling. Yeah. I'm the one that says happy life cycling at the end of every email. So you bet I did. So make sure you have that set along those lines. I want to talk about data cleanup as well, and really some data quality settings. So as you have worked on getting your data quality scores where you want them to be, if you are sort of resolved yourself to the fact that you're always going to be a 93.
Hey, Marnie, before you dive way off into this, go back to integrations, because there is an integration point I want to talk about that I don't think a lot of folks know about.
Sure.
Under Cisco, if you guys have any Cisco SmartNet products You guys know Cisco publishes their own end of life dates. And while we extrapolate out an end of life date by saying purchase date plus 5 years or purchase date plus 3 years or whatever your account settings are configured for those lifecycle policies, know that you can override those with Cisco's data by drilling in here and checking the checkbox that says, click that button, Marnie. I can't remember what the checkbox says, but load EOL date from Cisco. That will override your Cisco default EOL date. So if you bought a $3,000 Cisco high-end switch and deployed it for one of your customers, and you don't want them to expect to have to replace it in 4 years or 5 years or whatever your default recommendation is, you can check this checkbox, and this will say, as long as Cisco believes it is available, supportable, and patchable, it doesn't need to be EOL. And it'll overwrite that date with the Cisco date when Cisco publishes that date. So I just think that's a pretty valuable little tidbit that nobody really knows about. Because Cisco's so good about presenting that info, we're grabbing it and moving it through to you guys. So that's a tidbit that's in the integrations that most people miss, since it's so unique to them. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Thank you. And that's kind of what we want to talk to is, right? Like, let's clean up all of those pieces. So it's really very related to where I was heading with data quality score. Again, if you're sort of resolved to the fact that you're always going to be a 93 because you've got some assets in that category that are just never going to be that you're never going to have that data because you don't care about that data. For example, you do have options for removing them from this section. So the first option, and the second one for the record, is a workaround that we just came up in a ticket. So the first one, I'm confident everybody has had the opportunity to see, but the second one, I'm confident only one human has, because they just got a response in a ticket from support that they sent my way. So in account settings, asset type policies, if you have data that you don't want to have included in your data quality score, you can dig in. So an example, printer. I don't ever care if I have an end of life date for a printer. If I uncheck that button and save it, that means it's never going to count against me my data quality score. So first, if you're an overachiever and like 100 on everything, or 2, you really want across the board to be green and have hundreds so you know you're complete, you can control what is determining your missing data quality score.
And this helps a lot. This helps a lot with delegation, right?
Yes.
I know Ron doesn't want to be the guy who forever has to go fill in data quality to make it actionable, right? He wants to be able to hand that off to an employee. So in order to do that, we have to set guidelines for our employee and say, all right, if it has an agent on it, maybe I want it to be 100% data quality. Maybe if it doesn't, we can come back here and uncheck some boxes so that I can still hold my employee to the standard of make sure we get 100%. That's an easy number. There's no conversation around it. But now we've removed some of the stuff that would have been really hard and not super valuable in filling in the data and checking the box. Because we know that brother printer is going to be here for 14 years, whether you like it or not.
Mine.
Sorry about that.
So
The only good place for a brother printer is in a dumpster.
mine's an HP actually, but 14 years is probably very true for mine. While you're there, go check out your replacement costs, right? It's been a crazy year in terms of supply, and have any of your default prices changed in the course of the past few months? If you've booked a plane flight recently, you'll know that some things have gone awry and you may need to do some switching around. Along those same lines, the very first day you set up, one of the things we asked you to do was go in and look at your asset mapping. Oh, that's right. I can't pull this. I need to grab my screenshot from this. If you go into your asset mapping tab, you can see what we have pulled and then what category it lands in. Highly recommend that you take a look at your others and make sure that you really still want them to be an other. So I've talked to a few people recently that have had some things they really want to ignore as opposed to have an other. As a side note, oh, I forgot to mention the second hack on the missing data piece. Somebody put in a ticket last week that said, I don't want to exclude an entire asset type policy from my missing data. I don't want to exclude all workstations, but I do have specific workstations that I'm never going to care about. and I don't want them to count against me in data quality. So what they did was went into their asset type policies. They created a new asset type policy that basically says run into the ground, right? And run until it falls apart. So they put a, no EOL date. We're just going to use this until it wears out. And they moved these workstations by bulk selecting and changing asset type to this category, and they removed this from data quality. I thought that was an interesting workaround, because now you're taking all of those machines that you're not going to replace, right? You're creating a brand new asset, but you're repurposing the old one until it passes out, and it doesn't count against you. So an interesting use case, I thought. All right. So those are integration data quality pieces. The next piece is assessments. You definitely want to check out your templates and think, are there any new services / technologies that you are now providing that you need to add to an assessment question, right? So did you go out and buy the newest threat locker / Huntress / whatever we're pushing out to various clients that you need to add to an assessment? So don't forget to do a little cleanup on your assessments along the way. And lastly, I have a couple pieces. One of the things, so we're going to do a poll in a minute where I have a few questions that we'd really like to get some feedback on. But one of the pieces that we feel like is somewhat underutilized in the platform is, hopefully you all know, that you can do assessments on prospects or current customers, even if they're not counted in your subscription. So what does that mean, Marnie? That means I'm paying for 25 customers, but I have 70, and I want to do an assessment on the other 45. You can. So what does that look like? So first, in this drop down, you can see I have some assessment only companies. That means I'm paying for the companies at the top, and that I'm allowed to do assessments for the ones at the bottom. How do we get there? The preferred method is to go into your integrations page and pull up your company list and select in the show assessments only, or sorry, in the let me get what the actual word is. So it would be, all right. So I went into my company page. I went into integrations, clicked on company selection. Show in all reports is, this is who I've paid this subscription for. And now I can go and check who I want in assessments only. So if you can see, I'm pulling over prospects, managed clients, former clients, break fix clients, etc. You could do assessments on all of these if you click in show in assessments only. So is anybody using that now? And is anybody, like, I would love to hear somebody that's been using this for a long time saying like, ooh, I do need to do that. Is that the case for anybody?
I've used it before, but I haven't got no new clients yet to take and like really use it on, but I have used it. That's cool.
Perfect. It's just a way to get some more bang for your buck.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's a big value there if you're trying to upsell your old client base that maybe still has an outdated product set from you, or maybe still is on break fix, even though you don't want to be offering break fix.
Well, I'm pretty sure that when I took and I showed it to the one client that I showed it to, I'm pretty sure that's what cinched the deal, because all of a sudden we weren't doing what the other IT company was doing. And we showed her in black and white where her shortfalls were, where her company was falling flat, and technically where the other IT company wasn't taking care of her.
And I suspect black and white and red, yellow, green.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
I'll get on that.
So the best practice is to make sure they're entered in your PSA as a prospect. You can manually add them if you need to. It's not a best practice because if they become a client and integrate through your PSA, the data wouldn't match up. So best practice, get them in your PSA, sync them over. And if you're above the 5 client package, you can always sync your data in the data manager in the upper right-hand corner. If you're at the five client or below package, you have to sync the old-fashioned way or wait for an overnight sync or put in a ticket. But if you have one of the larger packages, you can select what you want to sync for data cleanup.
And that is the one sync function that will run a full sync and delete any deletions if you're doing data cleanup. So think about the deletion side of that.
Yep. Alex, were there any other pieces from the end of year checklist that you feel like we need to run through the clicks on? I pulled up the checklist and here we go. Let me just talk through a couple of them and then you can let me know what you think. Identify outstanding tech debt, which clearly is, oh, I remember what it was. In budget forecast, don't forget that in reporting options, you can show the overdue section, right? And if you only wanted to show a period or et cetera, that you really can start to say, okay, this is all of the stuff that isn't defined because this is a great place to start with the end of year spend down money, right?
It's a good conversation to start having right now, right? You know, we've got this tech debt snowball at the top. If we don't spend the money that we're scheduled to spend between now and the end of the year, it's going to roll into there. And then we've got all of next year's money. So if you're sitting on that COVID Easter egg of PPP money, let's get it spent. But it's a good conversation at this point to be able to maybe break it down and just show your customer 2 quarters, the quarter we're in and Q1 of next year. And do we need to kick some of this down the road, or do we need to, or are we able to maybe prepay for some of next year's stuff?
And then, of course, at the end of every year, you should really take the time to confirm the cadence of your business reviews. Has any client added some complexities that will require additional reviews? With the new cybersecurity liability insurance requirements, we're hearing much more that they're really saying, are you getting quarterly business reviews from your IT provider? And what is the cadence, and are they sticking to this? So you may need to do a little refresh for yourself. Remember, if you click into the customer, you can select with what cadence you would like to have for the particular clients, et cetera. You can change their settings on how frequently you meet with them, so forth and so on. You can add new meetings. You can show meetings in the past. Yep. So there are all the bells and whistles in that. Anything else, Alex, before I jump to the poll?
I don't think so.
Perfect. All right, so I would love to pick brains for a bit because getting feedback from everybody is very much helpful to us. So I am going to launch a poll and I'll read the poll for the folks who are listening to this recording. And then we'll give some feedback in the email, in the Monday email as well. So the first question is, what is the next part of your process you want to solve with Lifecycle Insights? Get more customers in the platform, use assessments with prospects, data reports cleanup, refine or create assessments, build recommendations, pull over contracts, set up report builder. We do it all. Tell us more about customer success.
While you're working on that, I'll talk through something I saw today, which was somebody going through an assessment that they did for a potential client. They actually went out and changed their default scoring so that the red, if you guys are not aware today, in fact, Marnie, it might be something we touch on before we're done.
Yeah.
The default scoring in an assessment today gives 1 point for a red answer. They went into configuration options and changed that so that a red answer got 0 points, a yellow answer got 1 point, and a green answer got 2, and their max points for a question is 2. When they did a pre-sales assessment for a customer, they literally scored a 4
Woo.
out of like 60 questions. It was no, 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 not doing it, not doing it, not doing it, not doing it. And they just had a really interesting assessment. It was a lot of, they were really pushing the envelope on next gen kind of bleed through products that are really moving the needle. Things like SaaS alerts, and they were doing scans with Cyber CNS, which does a lot of vulnerability scanning that you don't get out of some of the traditional tools. It was a really interesting assessment with a policy procedure heavy, with a lot of policies and procedures that these guys didn't have. And their goal was to sell not just managed services, but a rather large engagement around helping you build policies, procedures, building and maintaining all of that stuff in MyGlue, which I thought was interesting. It's just the first time I've really seen a client so heavy on going back to a client with a near 0 score. I've always tried to walk the line the other way and not make their environment look too much of a dumpster fire. And this was just a very different approach. I'm interested to hear how they do with it, but it sounds like this isn't the first one they've done that way.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I am going to read through a couple more of the questions for the folks that are listening in. How do you schedule QBRs? So quarterly for everybody, quarterly for some, segmented in some way, like a high, mid, or tech touch, ad hoc, no defined process. That's why we're here. Question 3 is, what content do you want to see on this call? So product updates, product feedback, or provide feedback, product demo instructions, other vendor services that educate you, not sell you, on how to sell services, industry trends, best practices, hear from other partners. FYI, right now we are 100%. So you can multi-select this one, and everyone has picked best practices as their top choice. How would you like to learn more? So we're always curious about how the best way to get information to you. So some of the options I gave are weekly workshops, a library of videos, paid boot camps, paid 3-hour workshops, Lifecycle Insights user event. Like if we did a live event as a user group, would you come to that? So that's sort of what we're asking about there. And then also we're asking, what type of events are you likely to attend next year? Webinars, virtual conferences. Are you planning on attending the big live events, the small regional events, peer groups? So I do also have some follow-up questions that I'll put in the Monday email, because we would love feedback on, are you in a peer group that you feel like would be good for Lifecycle Insights to sponsor? Are there events where you think, oh, I'm a member of this group, and why isn't Lifecycle Insights either here as a vendor giving a session, et cetera? Alex and I both really like to do workshops and presentations if we can provide value to the crowd that is there. And you all are out in the space. So if you have suggestions for us, or said like, I would love a workshop on X, Y, or Z, we'd love to deliver it. So I'm going to ask that in the email, and would love feedback. You can put it in the chat right now. You can send me an email. But if you have any suggestions, and the same thing for social media, right? If we're going to spend, if you had Lifecycle Insights marketing budget, where would you put it? Would love thoughts on how we could find more partners, because that's what we're here for. And that is what gets us engineers, so we can build things like customer success. So that's really what we're hoping to do. I always feel like at the end, I talk too much. Yeah, go ahead.
On number 5, can we mark more than one?
Oh yes, it should be multi-select. Yep. Yeah, I think all of them are multi-select for that very reason. I'd love to hear all the things. And I do appreciate we're getting lots of feedback. So nearly everybody has filled it out. So I thank you. So Alex, that is what I had for the folks. Would love to take any questions. I can see there are things in the chat. So let me go look and see if any of those are questions for us.
I think we're getting there. We've answered a good number of them in the chat. One of them was just around MFA popping up on all these insurance company audits. And I think what we're seeing across the board is MFA, not just for logging into core business applications, but all the way down to desktop sign-in. And was it Nation? I forget who or forget which one showed that. Travelers. Travelers is now asking if you have MFA enabled at the desktop level, which most MSPs don't, most people don't. So it's going to be a big year for Duo or something else.
I think that LastPass has something too.
Yeah, there's some other tools out there now that are doing like passwordless type things where you can have an app on your phone that will lock or unlock your workstation right from an app on your phone. So you're not actually ever typing in a password, which is great because you can have then a 200 character password that gets changed once a year, and the user never even knows what it is. So and when you combine that with single sign-on, then you have a really protected environment because the user doesn't even know their password, so they can't enter it in some place and be a target for a breach that way. So like the phishing things and things of that nature kind of go away.
Does that secret double octopus platform have desktop login at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Last I heard, it was still pretty limited, so I guess they've come a long way since I've seen what they're working on. That's
I don't
awesome.
remember what the name of it is. It might be a different provider that's doing it. We've just kind of started diving into this, you know, especially with things like CMMC coming out, and the requirements are so heavy among that, as far as like really locking down the environment, that we're, you know, we've started researching a lot of this more. And it also, right, when you can work with customers and say, this is how I'm going to make sure that your account doesn't get breached, because your user won't know what the password is, and so they cannot put it in when they click on the link.
Reuse it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, the majority of breaches and things like that, when a password is used over and over and over again like that. So if you can get that one password combined with single sign-on and the user doesn't know it, like that's going to reduce your risk so much.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement for sure. Ron, it's funny that you mention Kevin Clune. He just reached out to me and asked if I could join his podcast for MSP Spark. So yeah, we're definitely having conversations there.
Yeah. Seems like a good platform he's got going on.
Yep. Yeah. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Any questions for us, since I asked you questions, turned it on you today?
I just like the answer to smaller regional events, because seeing 54% of people want to come to the Chesapeake Bay to have crabs with us, just really, that is spot on.
Yeah, we
That
didn't
is
even
what you
know
meant
her-
by that, right?
That's what I meant by that.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Okay, just
if
checking.
we sponsor a crab feast in Baltimore, or maybe even this side of the bay, who's coming? That's awesome.
When are you guys coming to Boston?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you have
July?
it?
I don't know.
I think
Not
July.
between now and May. I hear it gets cold up there.
So we are looking at a couple of the regional ones. So we have done an ASCII, and we are doing a Robin Robbins next week. So we're curious, should we just aim to do all of the ASCIIs, which have lots of little ones? Should we do multiples of Robin Robbins, et cetera? So that's why we're curious where everybody is, so that, you know, if everybody's an ASCII member, we'd love to come find you there. If everybody's, you know, always shows up for Robin Robbins or wherever, we want to go where our people are. So that is part of why we wanted to get the feedback, because I think ASCII goes to Boston or somewhere in the Northeast. No more geometry references, Jeff? All right. I like it.
Sorry for making your brain hurt.
So you asked in high school when
Like
am I
algebra.
going to use this, and people said you're going to need it when you grow up, and that is why they sent me out. I was the one math teacher they sent out into the world and said, go harass other humans and make them remember that this is why they were supposed to learn this. So
They also told me I
Well,
wouldn't have a calculator in my pocket
Yeah,
all day.
or a camera, or
Right.
access to a library, and
Right.
well,
Yeah.
got that part out of the way.
yeah. Well, this is your friendly reminder that a little statement and it's contrapositive are always the same truth value.
Let's just say the thing about the calculator didn't age very well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, thanks all for participating. I appreciate the poll comments. I definitely will take them. Oh, I'll share the results even. I can do that. If anybody's
Yep.
interested.
Yep.
Got them on the screen.
You guys still loving your webinars. I see that.
I didn't ask them if they loved webinars. I'd ask them if they'd be attending webinars. I think that's a very different. Next time I'll ask about an emoji response to them. All right. Well, thanks all. Have great Fridays, great weekends, and we will not see you next week unless you're flying with us. So we'll see you the following week. So
And if you are flying, hopefully your Southwest plane actually gets you there.
Correct.
All right. Take care, guys.
Have a good one, guys.